It seems like everyone in the world saw Avengers Endgame. The event had people on social media buzzing, AMC theaters doing a 22-movie marathon leading up to it, and people were lining outside the cinemas worldwide for days. A moment like this doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's always astounding to see. For this piece, let's look back at some of the most memorable event movies in Hollywood history. One of the only rules set for this video is that there can only be one film per franchise. With the number of impressive franchises in Hollywood, it wouldn't be fair to see so many from just one brand. Cough cough, I'm looking at you, the MCU. With that out of the way, let's dive into some movie events. Number 10. Gone with the Wind. About 300,000 people showed up to Atlanta for the premiere of Gone with the Wind. Not only did the people of 1939 see a landmark film at the time, but this premiere had 3 days of festivities leading up to it. This kind of event surrounding a film's release was unheard of, with former US President Jimmy Carter recalling it as the biggest event to happen in the South in his lifetime. To say this film broke records at the time would be an understatement. Just at the Capitol Theater in New York, Gone with the Wind was averaging 11,000 admissions per day in the late 1930s. And within 4 years of its release, the film had sold an estimated 60 million tickets across the United States. Those numbers come in at just about under half the population at the time. Adjusted for inflation, and Gone with the Wind is the highest grossing film of all time, sitting around $3.7 billion. Number 9. Jaws. The term summer blockbuster did not exist until Jaws' release in 1975. Everything about the film's release was different, as Universal Pictures had something momentous on their hands. The film's marketing was intense, with the television campaign being the strongest at the time, with an unheard of $700,000 spent on national advertising. Jaws had an extensive amount of merchandise tie-in, even before Star Wars made it a regular thing in 1977. All of this came to a head during the film's release when it was rolled out in the United States to mostly positive praise and a boatload of cash. It only took Jaws 78 days to overtake The Godfather as the biggest film in North America. And it went on to shatter box office records in Singapore, New Zealand, Japan, Spain, and Mexico. Even the United Kingdom went wild for the home release, with 23 million people watching its inaugural broadcast in October 1981. Number 8. The Lion King. Animated films don't often feel like Hollywood movements. Disney's always a fan favorite, but they've never got rabid fan bases as you would have seen for Star Wars, Star Trek, and even the Ninja Turtles. That all changed during the Disney Renaissance though, as in the early 90s with Little Mermaid, and it grew even wilder with Beauty and the Beast. Then the phenom we call Lion King hit theaters and changed Disney forever. Families flocked to see this film, with The Lion King feeling like the must-see movie of 1994. It remains a staple part of the Disney catalog to this day, with a remake that has hit over $1 billion. Box Office Mojo estimates that this film sold over 75 million tickets in the US during its initial run and remains the highest grossing traditional animated film of all time. Number 7. Titanic. This entry isn't the only time you'll see James Cameron on this list, but he comes in steaming with this 1997 epic. Titanic is something hard to explain to people who weren't around at the time. Why did this fictionalized movie about a real-life 1912 tragedy take off with audiences so much? The world may never know, but it doesn't change the fact that this was the must-see movie of the holidays in 1997. Many predicted this movie would tank at the box office since it was such an expensive venture, the most expensive film at the time. How quickly the analysts were proven wrong, as Titanic made $120 million in less than a month. They were still having sellout screenings for weeks after the release. Many credited the love story as the reason why this film took off, and that theory looks accurate, as Valentine's Day 1998, this screening had the biggest single-day gross during its original run. Number 6. Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. One of the most remarkable things about the Lord of the Rings franchise doing so well at the box office is just how niche the source material feels. The fact that each one of these movies felt like a massive moment in pop culture is surprising, but none of the other films compare to the hype around Return of the King. Even the New Zealand premiere of the film felt big as a quarter of Wellington's population were lining up in the streets. The box office run for Return of the King did not disappoint as it brought in massive amounts of money, even becoming the second film to earn over $1 billion. Many also consider this not just a great event film, but one of the best films of all time. While that's subjective to many, it's hard to argue when the film is a winner of 11 Academy Awards. It's also a winner of 4 Golden Globes, 5 BAFTAs, 2 Grammys, and probably awards that I didn't even know existed. Number 5. The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight is a compelling case for this list as it became an event film slowly over its run. Leading up to the film, many people didn't know what to expect as it followed the overlooked Batman Begins, and it was starring Heath Ledger as the Joker, something crazy at the time. It's odd to think now that people were hesitant about the film, but it wasn't until months before the film's release that things started shifting in the terms of hype. With the passing of Heath Ledger and the marketing shifting towards showcasing his outstanding work, people began to see a little bit more interest in the film. And then opening weekend came and The Dark Knight was a massive hit. Every IMAX theater was sold out during the first weekend. The film's reception stayed positive critically and commercially, all the way up to the Academy Awards, where Heath Ledger thankfully won the Best Supporting Actor award. Number 4. Avatar. At the time of recording, there's only been one movie to take on Avatar's long-reigning title of the highest-grossing film of all time. Much like the other James Cameron film on this list, it's hard to pinpoint exactly why this film was such an event, but it was still an event movie nonetheless. The conversation around this movie was insane at the time, with everyone buzzing from the character design to James Cameron bringing back the 3D gimmick to the mainstream. It seemed like no one wanted to miss out on Avatar since it was the first film to cross $2 billion at the box office. While that total box office number is wild, even the smaller records Avatar broke were pretty impressive. The film set an IMAX Day opening record with 178 theaters, generating approximately $9.5 million. Number 3. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. Harry Potter is a film franchise that could have easily had quite a few entries on this list, with the first film being an event that I even took part of. But none of the movies in this beloved series came with such the anticipation as the conclusion, Deathly Hallows Part 2. Every moviegoer needed to see how the story ended, even if they did read the books. The magical powers of Harry Potter fans allowed this movie to make a massive amount of money, the highest in the franchise, and it remains one of the 20 highest grossing movies of all time. More than just the money though, The Deathly Hallows Part 2 earned its title as an event movie by its fan reception. People laughed, people cried, this movie touched everyone, and it feels like a genuinely once-in-a-lifetime moment. It's almost impossible to capture the magic of seeing these characters and these actors grow like we did during Harry Potter. Number 2. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Keeping it one film per series made it almost impossible to talk about the Star Wars franchise. Almost every time one of these movies are released, it is the craziest thing in the world. The first comeback in 1999 with The Phantom Menace almost took the Star Wars spot, but then thinking back to 2015 and remembering the massive hype about the first film in the Star Wars under the Disney umbrella, yeah, that was a big event. The hype around The Force Awakens is something the Star Wars franchise will likely never capture again, as it was a moment in time for the series and for the fans. Star Wars merchandise and fan conversations dominated the last part of 2015 and the early part of 2016. You could not escape this film at any cost. If Disney does one thing right, it's getting people talking about their big event films. Number 1. Avengers Endgame. The Disney Marvel brand is almost an unstoppable force in Hollywood. Since it began to pick up steam with 2012's The Avengers, Marvel Studios grew into one of the most impressive hitmakers today. 2018's Infinity War felt like a massive moment for the brand as it promised epic franchise-changing moments and ended with a crazy cliffhanger, and then came the monster known as Avengers Endgame. Months before its release, Avengers Endgame broke records with pre-sale tickets and social media hype. Even the first day release in China broke records there. Every diehard fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe went to see this film multiple times, and even casual moviegoers got sucked into the MCU hype. No one wanted to be excluded from what is the biggest superhero movie of all time. This movie was genuinely the first real threat to Avatar, and it proved that when it became the highest grossing movie of all time. I'm not saying money makes an event movie, but when that many people show up, yeah, that's a big deal. What is your favorite event movie of all time? Is there a movie that stands out in your personal history? Let me know all your feelings in the comments below, or reach out to us on Twitter at Flickering Myth. This has been EJ Marino, and thank you so much for tuning into our video. We have dived into the 10 biggest event movies of all time. Do you agree with my list? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to Flickering Myth, because we make videos like this every single week. And make sure you guys give us a thumbs up, because YouTube takes those way too seriously. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and let's talk about event movies below.